on From Behind the Music. It's a show where we interview extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm interviewing one of my heroes, Mr. Curtis Fondren. I looked up to this man from afar for years. He is the drummer for Christ Apologian, Dionne Warwick, Tremaine Hawkins, Jesse Dixon, the Barrett Sisters, Reverend Clay Evans, and the list goes on. And now to interview him is a dream come true and an honor. And it is Mr. Curtis, the man himself.
That is my honor. It's my honor. I appreciate you so much, man, more than you know. Your encouragement takes me a long way. And sometimes just when I need it most. Wow. Really appreciate it.
And I thank you for even being willing to take time out of your busy schedule to let me interview you. That's an honor.
Oh, that means man, a lot. I'm not too busy for that. So.
And the first question that I wanted to ask you is, how did you get your start in music?
My start, I grew up at Fellowship Baptist Church, Reverend Clay Evans. I was in the choir. Started off in the junior choir, and I was actually president at one time of the junior choir, believe it or not. They have a thing at Fellowship where once you reach, I believe it's 12, then they promote you to what we called then the big choir. So they promoted me from the junior choir into the big choir, the youth choir, and that's when I started recording with the choir. I was singing in the choir then. I was recording. And we were in the studio one night. This is before we started recording live. We were in the studio. And the choir took a break. They said, let's take a break in between songs. And in between the songs, I got up, got on the drums. I wasn't supposed to. I got on the drums and started messing around. And they said, you got a little something there, you know, you can be. So my friend Stevie Stewart was on the music staff as well. Well, at that time, not as well. He was on the music staff. And so they would have these monthly meetings or every other week, bi-weekly meetings, music staff meetings with Reverend Clay Evans and Dr. Ludella Evans-Reed and the whole staff. And so at the next meeting they had, he asked, could I join the staff? Because at that time, Fellowship didn't have a drummer. They had drummers that would come in from time to time, and they would bring their drums and play. Eugene Smith and Billy Carson and Elder Lewis Reed and Clifton Clay. Those were guys that I watched, but they didn't have a permanent drummer. They didn't have a drummer that was on the staff. And so they said graciously that I could join the staff. And once I joined the staff, they bought a set of drums. They purchased a set of drums. And then I became the first drummer at Fellowship that was paid musician, paid drummer on the staff. And so that's how I got my start. You know, even before then, the young lady that's singing on With Thee I Wed is my cousin, Felicia Coleman Evans. My mother and her mother were sisters. And they used to go to Fellowship when they were pregnant with us. We're 2 months apart. And so from that point on, we were brought up in Fellowship and been at Fellowship, you know, pretty much all my life. And so that's how I got my start.
Wow. And that's amazing.
God is amazing. Because when I first started, I had the desire to play, and I'm a firm believer in prayer. When I was in school, they had school bands and everything, and I always wanted to play drums. I've always wanted to play bass too, but I couldn't get the fingering. So I wanted to play drums, and they allowed me to get on the drums one day, and they were laughing at me and everything because my right hand was doing what my left hand was supposed to be doing. My right foot was doing, you know, all kind of crazy stuff. And so I went home after everybody laughed at me and went home and prayed, you know, and asked the Lord to give me the desires of my heart, you know, give me what it takes, what I would need to learn how to play the drums. And that's how I started. I never took any lessons, and the Lord just gave it to me. And so that's how I got started.
Oh, that's a blessing. How did you feel when you played on your first record?
Oh man, I was really, really excited because that was Fellowship's 25th anniversary. So the album is called the Silver Anniversary album, and that was the first album that I actually got a chance to play on. And after that, um, the main album that I played on was the Everything Will Be Alright album, which had Everything Will Be Alright and Please Touch Somebody and a whole lot of other tracks on there. So yeah, those were the main two. But man, it was just exciting. It was a dream come true. I never thought that I would actually be able to do what I was doing. I grew up listening to other people, and like I said, I had a desire to do it, but I never dreamt that I would actually be doing it and doing it with Reverend Clay Evans and Dr. Ludella Evans Reed, people that I grew up around, and so it was really exciting.
Wow. How was it working with all of those big names?
It was fantastic. With Reverend Jesse Jackson being the assistant pastor at the time, I was automatically connected with Operation Push in addition to Fellowship. And so when Fellowship would do things, we kind of interconnected. And I would play at Push sometimes. I would play at Fellowship sometimes. That's how I got a chance to play on the Phil Donahue show. I went to Milwaukee with Reverend Jackson and the Push Choir, and they were doing the Phil Donahue show. So that's how I got a chance to do that. But yeah, it was great. But just like anything in life, I think you don't really realize what you have or what you had until you look back on it sometimes and say, wow, because when you look at all the talent that was there and all of the anointed people that were there, we look back now and like, wow, we really had something going. When I left Fellowship to go start playing at Christian Tabernacle, we had about 12 drummers.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it was time for me to, move on and do something else. But yeah, we've always had an exuberant amount of drummers and keyboard players and directors, and the choir was a 200 voice choir, so it was pretty interesting, and everybody came through Fellowship, and so that's how I got a chance to play for a lot of people, being connected with Fellowship. And a lot of times if I went out of town, all I had to do was mention that I was the drummer at Fellowship and Reverend Clay Evans, and that would open up more doors as well. So it's been a blessing.
And it also made me think about the scripture, when God opens up doors, no man can close them.
That's it. And he will also put you before great men, So again, little old me, and how I'm a prime example of how, the Lord will take little and make much. You heard the older saints say, well, he'll take scraps and make a meal.
Yes, sir. I heard that
Yeah, so here I am. I'm no better than anybody else. I'm just somebody that God smiled on, and he favored me, and is still to this day favoring me. So I'm like blown away with everything. I never imagined that I would be doing the things that's going on now. So it's I love me. At a certain point in life, I learned how to love me. And you always find yourself trying to love other people and trying to satisfy other people. But when you can learn how to love you, then you really learn how to appreciate life and how to appreciate the things that you see other people don't have and all that kind of stuff. So God truly has favored me, and I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful. And so that's how I wouldn't have the audacity to frown my nose up, or if you say you wanted to interview me, like, me? Are you kidding? Yeah. So no, just like he gave you the talent, he can take it away. So how dare me be indignant or act like I'm any better than anybody else, because of what the talent the Lord gave me.
Amen. And Mr. Curtis, and when you said God could take it away, I've actually dealt with that before at one point, and God humbled me. I wanted to prove that I still had it, and God allowed
Okay.
me to get injured, and I couldn't
Oh
play
wow,
drums for 2 months.
wow.
And
Actually, I had an incident. I was helping somebody move, and I fell off the truck
ooh,
and broke my wrist. And they
ouch.
were telling me at the time, well, you may not play again. And I'm like, oh, loose here. I'm playing. So
Mm.
I was just determined. But yeah, I kind of had an injury myself.
I'm glad God allows you to get healed and be able to go back to doing
Yeah,
what you
you and
love
me
doing.
both.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And another question I wanted to ask you is it a difference between preparing to do studio work versus preparing to go on tours?
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Okay.
Touring, um, you're playing every day. You're depending on when I was playing with Fontella Bass and David Peaston, they did 3 tours in Europe a year. So that we would do a spring tour, a summer tour, and a winter tour. And so I got able to go to Europe and travel all over for at least 3 times a year. And so depending on the time of year, if it was summertime, then you're doing summer festivals and you're outdoor, and you're playing in that atmosphere. In the wintertime, it's cold, of course, and you're playing indoors, but it's much more wear and tear on your body when you're touring, because sometimes you don't get a lot of sleep. You're going from airport to the tour bus to the next town and so forth. So it's much more wear and tear on your body. I love it, but yeah, it's a big difference. Now they're both required. You both required to have a lot of concentration, and you got to really have your mind in doing what you're doing. But you got to have your head on straight.
Yes, sir.
Definitely when you're on tour, because the thing about Europe, they have a great appreciation for black music and black musicians and whatever. And if you don't have your head on straight, you can sometimes get lost because they make a big to do about you. I went over there. I forgot. I think it was Italy, and I had to have security.
Oh.
They had held people back, and oh no, they wanted my sticks and all kind of stuff, and it was crazy. So if you don't have your head on straight, you could be over in Europe and doing touring and doing what you're doing, and then get back and, like you said, be beside yourself. Um, so you have to have your head on straight and realize that, again, just like God gave it to you, He can take it away.
Yes, sir. Amen. That's powerful too. Always maintaining the humble mindset,
Definitely,
and
definitely.
God is using you as a vessel.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree.
Do you use different equipment for studio work versus tour work?
Before I got the cymbal endorsement, um, I would take. I think I was using Sabian cymbals at the time, and I would just take my cymbals and a snare, and then it was always in the writer that they would provide me with the drums, whatever drums I wanted. Sometimes it would be the drums they had on site already. But now that I have my Soul Tone endorsement, whenever I travel, I take my cymbals, and you take your cymbals, your foot pedal, and your snare if possible, and that's about it. But nothing in particular.
Yes, sir.
Just basic set, and you don't always need a big full set. You can to keep, the tempo or lock in, you can have a bass drum and a snare and a hi-hat cymbal, and you should be able to lock in a pocket just with that if that's all you have to work with.
That taught me something new, Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, well, if you become dependent on 3 or 4 cymbals and a crash cymbal and a ride and all, then what happens if some of that stuff breaks down or they don't have it wherever you go? Or, if you go to a church and the drums are falling apart and you got to do the best you can, which I was playing drums one time and I hit the tom-tom and it fell off on the floor and rolled down the aisle. So, yeah, you just have to make the best of it. And you have to learn how to play the drums and not let the drums play you,
I'll have to write that one down, Mr. Curtis. You play the drums, don't let the drums play you.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's most important to stay humble. And that's what I appreciate about even you. You tell you have a humble spirit.
I thank God for you too, Mr. Curtis. You've been a big blessing to me. And I thank God for Eric too. When he made the Gospel Music magazine, because that's how I got a chance to meet you.
Oh, well, yeah, most definitely. And that was a blessing. What I learned at fellowship a long time ago, Reverend Evans used to say, people don't have to be nice. And if they are nice, they don't have to be nice to you.
That's true.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't take it for granted. And I really appreciate Eric and anybody else like yourself that wants to that's even interested in what I'm doing. Because you don't have to be.
That's true. That's true. And I've been quoting you for the past year ever since you said that. It stuck with me. People don't have to be nice to you, and it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that always keeps you at an attitude of gratitude.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
And how did you feel when you released "You Are My Everything"?
"You Are My Everything" it's like my baby. It's a part of my baby because the whole album is going to be about 19 songs. So "You Are My Everything" was just an EP that was taken. That's, I believe, 7 songs that was taken from the whole album. And so after we released "You Are My Everything," the EP, then we chose "With the I Wed." We selected that as a single. So all the while, I'm still working on the full album. The full album has taken me about 5 years.
Wow.
To complete. We're finally done, and we're working on the packaging now, the cover and packaging. But it's taken me 5 years. One being that I was financing it myself, and so I didn't want just any kind of anything thrown together, and I didn't want a lot of synthesized instruments. I'm a string fanatic, so I wanted live strings and I wanted live horns and live musicians, playing things. And so it's taken me a long time to put it together. Didn't always have the money, a lot of sacrificing and so forth, but we're almost there.
Amen.
So that's how it, again, how "You Are My Everything" became, because we pulled the 7 songs out of the full project. And so each song, just like "You Are My Everything" album, EP, each song is going to feature or will feature different artists. So I had the Lord laid it on my heart to each song ask different artists to sing on the songs. I've written every song on the project. And so then I would go to different people and say, whoever the Lord laid on my heart for this. So like with the I Wed, I asked my cousin Felicia and Desmond, which I'm fans of them both. And I asked them, would they sing? And they said yes. And so that's how I came about that. It's Your Time. That's on the "You Are My Everything." Sam Franklin we all grew up together at Fellowship, and then she left and went to start singing with Reverend Walter Hawkins and Love Center. She sings the song what is the name of the song? Not It's Your Time. Oh wow, I can't think of the name of the song. But she, excuse me, she's leading a song on the album with Reverend Hawkins. And so, anyway, she moved to Nashville, and I asked her, would she sing on my album, and she said yes. And so, different people, that's how, it came about. Different people are singing on each song. And the drummer from Fellowship his name is Mike Heason. He's the current drummer in Fellowship now. He grew up watching me play. And so he was real little and would sit on the second row, and he had a pair of sticks, and he would kind of emulate everything I did. And so it was my desire to have him play on my CD. So he's playing on Trust Him, the quartet track.
That's my favorite.
So okay, yeah, that's Mike Heason. And if you listen to him closely, our styles are quite alike, because he grew up listening to me and along with others, but we grew up in Fellowship together, and we didn't grow up together, but he grew up watching me, and it was my honor to have him play. Then my son, I have a son that plays drums also, so he's playing on drums on You Are My Everything, on the track You Are My Everything. So different people, different artists that I've worked with, I will call them up and say, hey, I'm doing my project, I would love to have you on it. And on the other tracks you'll hear, once it's done, I'll send you a copy of the full project. And it's a number of artists, Richard Gibbs and Shelby Wills, who was the organist at Cosmopolitan. Father Hayes, Jesus Can Work It Out. He was the organist on that. So yeah, I'm really hoping that it's well received. It's taken a long time, a lot of prayer, and in answer to your question, that was a long way of saying that's kind of like my baby. So it's like, yeah, when you finally let it out to the public, you are hoping that it reaches somebody, touches somebody, inspires somebody, encourages somebody.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's great.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to ask you, what was your inspiration behind writing With Thee I Wed?
With Thee I Wed was actually inspired by my own wedding, along with the co-writer. I was married, and my co-writer was in the process of getting married, or wanted to get married at the time. And so our desire was to speak to somebody. We wanted to speak to both the secular and the church, the secular and the Christian world, and talk about how God ordains marriage, and how He speaks to the sanctity of marriage, and how it should be, and how we wanted. You hear Luther singing, and you hear BB and CC, but we wanted to kind of give our take on things as well. And so so far people seem to really like it, and so we're hoping that it continues to do well.
And it is. I see when it was number one, and I seen when this country it was going up the charts, and I got a chance to actually see it, because I remember when you first released it, and just seeing how God used it, and it was just hitting the charts fast.
Yes. Yeah, still doing. Last week it was number 7, and I got a preview of the chart. The chart comes out every Wednesday, and I got a preview of the chart earlier today, and I think we're still like 7 or around 7. So it's just a blessing to be in the top 30. And it's been, riding for maybe 6 or 7 months now. So it's a blessing.
How did you feel when it first hit the charts?
Actually, when it first hit the chart, I was excited. But when it hit number 1, I was, I don't mind saying, I started crying like a little baby. I was at a function, a ceremony. Some friends of mine from fellowship were renewing their vows. They were married 50 years. And the bride asked me if she could use with the Awed to come in or make her entrance on it. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Yes. So my wife and I were at the event, and we're sitting at the table, and I get a text saying, you just hit number 1. And I just started crying. I'm sitting at the table with people looking at me like, what's wrong with them? And then she started crying. I'm like, so yeah, it was just tears of joy. Knowing how hard we've worked, Amazing Grace, and how he's taken me and what he's doing. Um, I'm speechless sometimes, and I just say, whatever you got for me, Lord, let me know. Let me know what door you want me to walk through, and I'll walk, So yeah, I was just excited. I was excited when it got on the chart, but I was even more excited when it got to number 1, and still excited because it's still on the chart.
You never know. With the Awed, it may be a song where tons of people have walked down the aisle with it.
Yeah, that's my prayer. I was just contacted last week, over the weekend. I have a friend that used to go to fellowship, and she moved to Dallas, and she said that her cousin had just gotten married, and they played with the Awed at the reception. And so again, people are playing it all over, and I'm loving it.
I know I'm definitely walking down the aisle too with the Awed.
Oh, great,
Yes.
great.
Okay.
But wait, did you talk that over with the first lady?
I'm going to.
Yeah, make sure. She might not. Maybe she might not even like it. So, but I pray she will.
I pray she does too.
Yeah.
If not, I'll be like, why not? Like, it's a good song. How does your faith play a part in your journey?
My faith played a part. Learning how to have blind faith, because sometimes you have to see it before you see it. A lot of times things won't look right, but you have to have a passion for whatever it is you're doing in life, and music just happens to be my passion. And so there were a lot of times when things weren't looking all that bright, and times when I'm not too proud to say I was homeless, and didn't know much about what was going to happen next. But God spoke to me, and as clear as day, told me that it was going to be all right. He said, I'm going to bring you through. But when I bring you through, first of all, I'm going to make it so that you know that it wasn't anybody but me that brought you through. And when I bring you through, I want you to make sure that you tell everybody that it was me that brought you through. So that's why I couldn't dare do an interview or anything without acknowledging that the Lord can and will bring you out. Like the song says, a lot of times we're trying to work it out, and He's already worked it out.
Amen.
But we just have to have the faith and know. And it don't take a whole lot of faith. It's, like I said, the size of a mustard seed. And it sounds so simple. But sometimes we make things so difficult. It's easy. It's ABC 1, 2, 3. Just believe in Him. Trust Him and believe in Him.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes we make things so hard, so difficult, and we go all around and we talk to this person and that person and that person. And then we finally end up realizing, let me turn it over to the Lord. And once you do, He's like, I've been waiting on you, hey. So yeah, you gotta have faith before you see it.
That's so true, Mr. Curtis. And it makes me think about the scripture when he talked about, unless you come to me as a little child.
Mm-hmm.
And kids, like whatever you say, if they love you and trust you, they believe it. But
Right,
like you were saying with
right,
adults, we question it like, God, I don't know about this. Like, are you sure? Before we even
right.
step out on faith. And
Yeah,
listen to your
yeah,
story about you going from being homeless to where you're at now. That's nothing but God.
yes. I would agree. I would agree. And there'll be a time when I could tell my whole story. I tell it every now and again in bits and pieces. Um, but he assured me that, I'd have an opportunity to tell it. And again, I just got to make sure that when I tell it, I don't leave him out. Uh, I make sure I let everybody know that it was him that brought me through and is still bringing me through, that's still keeping me. Um, I wrote a song that's going to be on Christian Tabernacle's CD. We're in the studio now working on that, trying to wrap that up. And I wrote a song called Show Up, and it's God Will Show Up at the Showdown. And that was taken from a sermon that Reverend Maceo Woods, the late Reverend Maceo Woods, preached. And he was talking about how the Lord will show up at your showdown. And so I wrote a song about that, myself and Gregory Gay, who co-wrote it, and Clifton DeBose. And that'll be on upcoming CD. So I'll let you know about that as well.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot in store. God has a lot in store, and I'm just, again, waiting to see what He has. And I'm a willing participant.
Man, yes, sir. He's opening up blessings for you that you won't have room to receive.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Exactly. Who would have thought, that I'd be doing any of what I'm doing now. So yeah, and you got to believe in yourself. A lot of times we sometimes wait on people to encourage us. Sometimes you have to learn how to encourage yourself. So if you don't have nobody, and sometimes you will find people that are friends or supposed to be friends, and if they're not there for you, just learn how to encourage yourself. Believe in yourself.
Yes, sir.
That's easier said than done, but that's the bottom line.
Yes, sir. What advice would you give a beginner musician who wants to transition into being a professional musician?
Have a passion for what you want to do, because if you don't have the passion, you'll give up as soon as things don't go your way or things are difficult. At one time, I taught at a music school. Right around the time you remember the movie Drumline?
Yes, sir.
Uh, the movie Drumline came out, and every little boy at that time wanted to play drums. And so I taught at a music school here in Chicago for a year. And all my students had seen the movie and they wanted to play because they had seen the movie. And then once they got in and found out that it's not a game, it can be fun once you learn your craft, but you really have to want to do it. You really have to take the time to study what you're doing. And if not, it'll show. And then the first time you can't do what you set out to do, then you give up. So I would encourage anybody to make sure that they have that passion, that it's not just something that you want to do this week, and the next week you want to do something else, and you want to do something else. But if you have the passion, then follow your dreams. And I heard somebody say one time, if your dreams don't scare you, then they're not big enough. So you got to dream big. You know, if all your dreams are that make you comfortable, and you're like, oh yeah, I could do that or whatever, yeah, and you're not dreaming big enough. Not dreaming big enough.
That's a message
Your
by
dreams ought to
itself.
scare you. Yeah, your dreams ought to scare you. Like, wow, can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. That's where your faith comes in, and you have to apply it. That's about it. I do want to give shout out to my co-writer, Jocelyn Buchanan, who co-wrote with the Awed. And as you know, it's featuring Felicia Coleman Evans and Desmond Pringle. Desmond pastors a church in LA, I believe. And Felicia's here in Chicago. I spoke with her earlier today, in fact. And it was produced by Gregory Gay and myself and Reverend Ferris Evans Jr. So, looking forward to the whole project coming out. And like I said, I'll keep you posted, you know, as to the progress of it all.
I can't wait to hear. I'm excited just hearing about it.
Yeah, it's should be something a little bit on there for everybody. You know, so we got, of course, everything that's on the EP that's going to be included, as well as with the Awed and then the other songs that you haven't heard yet.
When you said 19 songs, that's definitely not something that you see as much anymore, like it would on like a lot of the older records. And when you said the live feel, it's sometimes the drum programming and things like that, it's okay, but when you have that live feel, it is a whole different feel to it.
I agree. So I tried to have that as much as I could on this project, and you know, the live feel, live drums and live strings, live horns, and hopefully you'll like it. You know.
Yes, I'll add it to my Spotify as soon as.
Yeah.
Yes, Chris. And I also want to know if someone is listening and they would like to book you or get in contact with you, can you give us a few of your contact information?
My email address is abbreviation Drummerboy, so it's DRMRBOY, the number 2, the letter D, at yahoo.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I think Instagram is Drummerboy, DRUMMERBOI _1, the number 1. And if you go through Facebook, I think, you know, you can pretty reach me, or email. And for those that even want to give me a call, my number is 312-388-3786, which also spells drum, DRUM.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yep, 388 drum. So, yeah, that's about it. And looking forward to it. You know, anybody that would be interested in contacting me.
Yes. And do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with any of the listeners?
Be encouraged. You know, in this day of pandemic, and a lot of things are different. Church as we know it is different. You know, not sure if things are ever going to go back to actually what we know as church, how we used to have church and be in church, or playing without a mask and things of that nature. But I would just say be encouraged, and know that if you do put your faith in God, you know, He will see you through. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, He'll see you through.
Yeah.
And follow your dreams. Don't let anybody discourage you. Learn how to believe in yourself. Learn how to love yourself. learn how to encourage yourself. That's vitally important.
Just hearing that blessed me.
I hope so, because I'm looking forward to supporting some of the stuff you're going to be doing too.
Thank you, Mr.
It's
Curtis.
coming.
Yes, sir. I receive that, Mr. Curtis.
Yeah, it's coming. Just hang in there.
Yes, sir.
Even having a desire of thinking about me, to do this. And again, like I said, people don't have to be nice. And if they are, they don't have to be nice to you. And I really appreciate that. I appreciate you. I appreciate all of the encouragement you're always giving. And I pray that the Lord, gives you double of whatever it is that you're endeavoring to do.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. I thank God for you, all the encouraging words you shared with me, all the pieces of wisdom that you gave me throughout the past years. It's been blessing me. And this is Behind the Music, where we interview extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. Again, one of my heroes, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is Sean from Behind the Music. Thank you for listening to the show. And I pray that you were blessed by Mr. Curtis's story, because I really was. Like, I was taking notes and everything. So until next time,